When I say the word telemedicine, what's your first thought? Your gut reaction? Maybe you think it was just an interesting COVID experiment or a stopgap for clients until they can get to a real vet. Or maybe you're curious about what it would be like to work in telemedicine, but you're worried that you'll be bored or that you'll just end up diagnosing lizards on Zoom. Whatever you think, you're probably wrong. But don't worry, this episode will set you straight and answer all of your questions you've ever had about telemedicine. I'm Hubert Hemstra, and you are listening to The Vet Vault, where we explore these spaces beyond the consult room and shine a light on what's possible in modern veterinary careers. Our guest today is Dr. Shadi Ireifej, a board-certified surgeon, tech entrepreneur, and co-founder of Vet Triage, a global teletriage platform. In this conversation, we go deep into the real-world pros and cons of telemedicine. We take a two-pronged approach. One, from the perspective of someone who is curious about what it's like to work as a vet in telemedicine. And we answer questions like, what is working as a televet like? Is it satisfying? Will I get paid well? Will I get in trouble for giving the wrong advice? And if you're a clinic owner thinking about integrating telemedicine into your business, there's gold in here for you too, as Shadi gives us his behind-the-scenes insights into the practicalities, the challenges, and the lessons learned from his years of both creating and working in his teletriage business. Personally, this is one of those chats that really made me reflect about how we define what good vet work looks like. And I think you will too. Let's get into it with Dr. Shadi Ireifej. So, I want to consider a career in telemedicine, but I have some questions. I want to know what it's like to work as one. What's going to irritate me? What's great about it? Things like that. You have a team of how many? How many people do this for you guys?
Just over 70 doctors. And then we have half a dozen support staff, most of which are veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses. They answer the phones. They don't give medical advice. But at the face of the public, about 70 doctors.
Here's a question when, now maybe as well, but in the early days, did you actually need to get on the phone and speak to clients? As the doctor in the team of the ownership team, did you have to do the actual work?
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, when we first launched this, I was the only doctor on the platform, and we were global from day one, and any animal type from day one. So I was doing all the calls. I still jump in once in a while because I don't want clients to wait too long. And so I'll jump in and help my veterinarians out.
Okay, so you are out there on the front lines sometimes. So you, if when I ask these questions, you can definitely give me firsthand experience. I do want to make surgeon jokes. Is your general advice when somebody calls you like, yeah, needs to cut it?
Yeah.
How do you handle the questions about deworming protocols and parasites and stuff like that from way back at university? I'd imagine in your residency and surgery life, you didn't deal with too many first opinion things.
Oh, for sure. And just like I have never worked on horses or cows or sheep, and yet we would get these calls about a kangaroo or an ostrich or a squirrel, and I have no clinical experience with that. But if there's one thing that veterinarians are good at, it's being versatile. And so if I know that the question being posed to me by the pet owner is not an emergency, but I don't know the answer, but I know it's not an emergency, I can tell the client, look, let me do some research, talk to my colleagues, and I'll call you back later with some information. And then they appreciate that because at least they know it's not an emergency, and I can now contact them back and give them a more well-informed decision. If it's a really weird animal type, I will literally look up material with the pet owner watching me, looking in Merck manual, or I'm doing a PubMed search to find information, because sometimes that pet owner who owns a really weird animal, they know more than I do about it. And so they just want a doctor's perspective on it. So I have to educate myself.
I think we've just addressed probably one of the big worries for somebody considering this is that fear of going, am I going to be able to do this job? Am I going to be able to perform on the spot and make the right decisions and not give bad advice? So that's actually a great answer, because is that something that people worry about when you have interviews or when people contact you about work?
Because veterinarians are reliant on their hands. They want to be able to perform a physical exam on their own. They want to perform a rectal exam, listen to the heart and lungs. They want to run blood work and radiographs and all that stuff. They want to have medical records in front of them. And so they are concerned. However, I have found that the cutoff time from graduation to when I will even entertain the idea of them joining the team is 5 years. Any vet that I've tried to hire who've been out for under 5 years from school, they get killed on this. So you have to have some
Yeah.
level of real life experience. You have to have seen a case 1,000 times in order to feel comfortable giving a pet owner advice over video. So yes, you're absolutely
Mm.
right. Even a seasoned veterinarian is scared of it, but when they get into it, they realize quickly these are very basic situations, and these pet owners just need peace of mind of what to do next, or what to look out for. But yeah, there is that fear. But you have to have ample clinical experience before you can dive into this. But also, don't forget, Hugh, that we started this platform from day one being global, any animal type. You don't have to do that. If you wanted just dogs and cats, I'm sure there are platforms out there that just do dogs and cats. If you want to incorporate
Yeah.
telehealth in your brick and mortar practice, that way it's your own clients, you know them, you already have an established VCPR, you can do that. So you don't have to do what we're doing. We did this because the long-term plan is to partner with veterinary hospitals, universities, shelters, rescues, etc., and be the all-encompassing tool that they can rely on to help with their case management. We're unique in that. No one else does it this way, but it's also daunting.
Yeah. So that's one concern addressed. Do you have other things that pop up when people start speaking to you about it and going, well, I'm
Mhm.
interested? Common concerns, fears, worries that need addressed that you see popping up time and time
Absolutely.
again.
So the legal aspect, they're worried that what if I tell a
Mm.
client it's not an emergency, you can wait for your vet to open, and then the dog dies overnight? It's a very common concern, and rightfully so. On our platform, I've created several layers of protection. The first layer of protection is going to be the website. The website says specifically what the client should expect, triage and advice. Then the second stage is before the client, after they create an account, before they pay, there's a disclaimer. They have to read the disclaimer and sign off that they acknowledge the disclaimer. The disclaimer talks about VCPR and the pros and cons of telehealth. After that, we have our doctor. They're the third layer of protection. The doctor reiterates what the goal of the platform is, what they feel comfortable doing, what they can say, what they can do. The fourth layer of protection is the
Okay.
paperwork, because we email the client the medical records, which is a summary of the advice given. And at the bottom, we have more legal language that reminds them of the disclaimer they signed, that we are limited by what we can do, it's virtual, etc. The next layer of protection is we give the client the tools they need to monitor that patient. So, what clinical signs to look out for. And then we also give them the means to recontact us without paying again by email or phone 24
Mm.
7. These things are monitored. And that way, if the pet does decline or show additional symptoms, or they just have more questions, they can talk to a veterinarian free of charge 24/7 until their veterinary clinic is open again. And then we hand them off. And knock on wood, so far we've been safe. We're approaching 200,000 cases in under 5.5 years, and we haven't had a problem yet. So all of these layers protect us, and it's worked well so far.
So how I read that answer is yeah, it is potentially a concern, hence all the protection. So if you are considering a job like this, double check that where you're going to work, that you are protected to some extent, that there's something to cover your ass if it should happen, but also be the reassurance of you guys have the numbers to
Yes.
show, yeah, theoretically possible, but if you're an experienced vet, it's and if I think about, because that's definitely one of my concerns, and I still feel the same when I'm on shift in an emergency hospital and people call us for advice. Very often, I'll answer a question going, "Yeah, that sounds fine. It doesn't sound like we." And in the back of my head, there'll be a little bit of, "But what if you're wrong?" And it's actually,
But but that's
um,
human nature, right? Like we don't like we're not gods. We can't predict the future with 100% certainty. Any reasonable human being knows that. You're doing the best you can with what the tools you've got ahead of you, and also what your experience levels are. But also, if you look at the numbers, the number of telehealth
mm,
cases that have been brought to any medical board globally, for all intents and purposes, is basically zero. But if you look at any given area, a county in a state here in the U.S., and look at the number of medical board complaints that occur, it's going to be probably hundreds, if not thousands. And if you multiply that by an entire country, I mean, telehealth doesn't even touch the numbers that brick and mortar has. So just by virtue of statistics, brick and mortar has way more risk of liability than a virtual platform.
oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. Is that, do you think it's expectations? Is it because the client will appreciate that there's limitations as to what you can say and do over
If
the
I had
phone?
to hypothesize the different reasons, I think that's one of them. I think clients have common sense. They understand you're doing the best you can over a virtual medium. There's also the fact that
Mhm.
telehealth compared to brick and mortar is still fairly new. And so maybe it just needs more time to get more errors happening. The third also is that in a brick and mortar setting, as you know, whether you practice ER or general practice or specialty, you have 1,000 things going on in your mind. People are waiting, animals are coming in critical, all this, you're trying to discharge patients, you want to get your staff to leave on time, medical records. And so you're going to be prone to making errors. You have all these things in your head that you're trying to juggle.
Mm,
So there's many factors, and I'm sure there are way more that we haven't thought of that contribute to those numbers. But I also want
mm,
veterinarians to understand if they want to be a televeterinarian, that speaking based on numbers and our experience, the risk is very low that you're going to run into a problem.
okay. I want to give you a quick update on what's happening with Vets on Tour, our destination snow conference in New Zealand from 10 to 15th August. We have finalized our academic program, and I think we've put together something really special. We're focusing on GI disease, ophthalmology, and FIV and FELV. FELV. We are importing Dr. Catherine Bush all the way from Germany to delight us with her favorite topic, diarrhea. Acute, chronic, hemorrhagic, the whole smelly lot of it, with a particular focus on the microbiome and how and when we can use fecal transplants to manipulate it and improve diarrhea. Ophthalmologist Dr. Matt Aeneas will get us up to speed on the emergency eye and GP level ophthalmology surgery, while microbiologist Dr. Mark Westman is going to clarify all of the myths and misunderstandings about feline leukemia and FIV. We've also booked our band, we're buying our ski passes, and everything is shaping up for an epic week of CPD and adventure. And with only 16 tickets left, it is time for you to get off the fence and just bloody commit. But if you can't make it to New Zealand, or even if you can, but you just can't get enough of snow and CPD, we have some early news about our next 2026 event. We've locked in a venue and speakers for Japan 2026. On the 23rd of Feb, we will be going to Nozawa Onsen. If you've never heard of Nozawa Onsen, think traditional Japanese mountain snow village, hot springs, sake served on a tray of actual snow, monkeys in natural hot tubs, and that famous Japanese powder. If you'd like us to email you when we go live with our pre-sale tickets for Japan, shoot me an email at info@thevetfall.com so you get first pick of our best pricing. Oh, and for our US listeners, I Googled it. It's just a 12-hour flight, so no excuses. We want to see you there. Okay, back to Dr. Shadi and telemedicine. All right, other concerns. I'll give you one of mine. If I am a clinical veterinarian and I'm considering switching, I worry a bit that I'd be, suppose, bored or unfulfilled, or I'm just gonna be going, yeah, all right, yeah, your dog's itching, go to a vet. Is that a concern? And how do you find the people who work in it? What's the actual
So
experience?
in interviewing my vets who are the most seasoned, meaning they've been with me since almost day one, so years now, a lot of them will describe this as being having almost an addictive type of like hook to it, where it's kind of like downloading a game on your phone and now you're just hooked on it. They view it as a veterinary video game. They find it fun, even though the cases might be a skin case or a diarrhea case, pretty routine general practice stuff.
Yeah.
There's no CPR. There's no tapping an abdomen or a chest. There's an addictive thing to it. They enjoy it. I think a key thing, Hugh, honestly, with this is you have to love talking to people. If you're a veterinarian who loves
Mm.
animals, but you kind of don't like the communication part of it, you might find this a bit stressful. But if you love speaking to
Okay.
people, like I know you do, I definitely do, it's enjoyable because you're seeing the relief of people, the stress leave their body as you tell them it's not an emergency. Don't worry. Here's what we can do. Here's what you can monitor for. Call your vet in the morning. I'll send you the paperwork. I'll send them paperwork. They love it. They're like, oh my God. And that's what gets me high off of doing these sessions. So I don't think the veterinarians get bored of it. And most of my vets are either from general practice world or from the emergency world. And so two different mindsets in terms of like how urgent things are in their day to day. And they seem to enjoy it. But to be fair, like I said, it's not for everybody. Based on your personality
Yeah.
type or what kind of hours you want to work or all that, it's not for everybody. I've had plenty of vets that have come and gone, and that's fine. It has to resonate with you in order to be fun.
Yeah. All right. So maybe it is, and I suppose it's like any job. I was going to say in the vet profession, but any job at all. Pick the job that suits your personality style and your likes and dislikes. So we've got two kinds of people who it's maybe not for. Have some experience under your belt, so not too inexperienced. Number two, if you like getting your hands dirty, if you're the I want to cut stuff and do stuff, then obviously this is not for you. And yet, as you say, there are many vets I know who hate the client
Yeah.
contact part. This is not your job. This is not your role. Are there other things that you would say, okay, the people we've employed who are like this or prefer these things, they don't last, they
Well,
bail? Are there other exclusion
I'll add one more
factors?
thing to the last statement. You don't have to do this full time, right? You could work in a very busy, crazy brick and mortar, and then you do vet
Yeah.
triage or some other platform, and it's much more low key and relaxed and slower pace. So you don't have to go all in. I do have 1/3 of my vets do this full time, meaning 40 to 60 hours a week. The other 2/3 don't. They do this on the side, and they have a primary job in brick and mortar.
It's actually a really good point. I'm a very strong proponent of people who say, I don't like being a vet. My first question is always, are you sure it's not just I don't like being a vet
Yeah.
50 hours a week? And finding ways to say, well, let me do a little bit of that and then something else that's a change of pace or a complete different environment is, for many people, I find that's the key to a happy vet career. And realistically, a lot of people will do this as an additional or a different source of income. And again, this is obviously very specific to each teletriage company, but as a general rule, is income comparable between this? Because I look at it from a business owner's perspective, saying, well, if I pay a vet at an hourly rate and in their time there, they might do a massive surgery or something that's going to bring in a lot of money for me from the business. Whereas with you guys, it's consult fees only. You're not selling anything else. So is it similar sort of income or less, or like what can the
Yeah,
expectations
so
be?
I can't speak for other platforms because they all compensate their veterinarians differently. On ours, at least right now, it could change in the future, but the veterinarians get paid per call that they see or video that they see. And on average, we know that at least on the non-equine platform, the average call is maybe 10 to 12 minutes. And so if they get paid X number of dollars for the one call and it takes them 10 minutes on average and they get fit 4 to 6 cases an hour, then they can do the math per hour, per week, per month, and is that worth it for them or not? The other
Hmm.
factor to that too is what hours do you want to work? Because even though we're a global company, we still see a maldistribution of cases. We still are very busy between, and again, I'm in the US, so between evening time on any given weekday till about middle of the night, it's our busiest. The rest of the time is quieter. And then
Okay.
weekends and holidays, of course, are very, very busy, but the middle of the night is typically quiet. And that's despite seeing clients from Australia, New Zealand, or Hawaii. It
Hmm.
seems to be that distribution is consistent year by year. So the question is, depending on where you live, are those hours that you want to work? Because that's when you're going to see the most cases and make the most money. The final thing that I'll mention is the lack of consistency. I can't promise you how many cases will come in any given hour. Because just like an emergency hospital where you can have an oddly quiet Saturday and an oddly busy Wednesday morning, it's the same thing for us too. These are not appointments, these are all walk ins. And so you could have a Saturday night that's just really quiet. And then a Monday morning that's like, what the hell's going on? It's so busy, right? So we rely on our data of over 5 years where we know on average, we are busiest these days and these times. So if you're a veterinarian who needs more consistency with that, this may not be the one for you. If you're a veterinarian who is fine, you want fast action, get things going, and when it's quiet, you're okay with that, then great. That's for you. So that's how we operate currently. I know other platforms operate differently. I just don't know their details, but that's how we compensate the doctor.
Makes sense.
And like one more concern that veterinarians have on the platform. So seeing different animal types, right? Because not every veterinarian is comfortable with not knowing what animal type is going to show up. On our platform, if you remember, name, phone number, email, that's it. The video pops up and it could be a dog, a cat, a chinchilla, a snake, you don't know. And I tell vets at the interview, not every vet's nervous system is made for that. So you have to be okay with the fact that a chicken can show up on the video without any warning, and the client is like, "Do you know chickens?" And they're holding their chicken on the camera. That happens. And so again, that's not for every veterinarian either. You have to be okay with that sort of spontaneity on the platform. Even though we know over 90% of our cases are going to be dogs and cats, still we after dogs and cats, it's rabbits, birds, reptiles as most common. And they have to be okay with that
Okay,
too. So
interesting.
that's another aspect of this that may concern some veterinarians.
Yeah, that would be something that I'd have to think about carefully personally. You're right. I do like to know what I'm heading into and I like to feel like I know my stuff. But you said before, the goal is not always a resolution of the problem, right? It is very often based on basic principles. I think you can wait and go see an exotic specialist in the morning. In the meantime, try this and this and this and this. It's not necessarily, oh, yeah, your parrot has a nutritional deficiency. It needs to be on this
Correct.
medication.
Yeah, the first step is triage. Do you have an emergency or not? If you do, let's see if there's some emergency options. If you don't have an emergency, or you do have an emergency, but there's no emergency options, what palliative care, what advice, what instruction, direction can I give you until you can see your family veterinarian? In the case of exotics, even during the weekdays, daytime hours, they still can't find a vet. And so you might be watching a Disney guinea pig on camera that probably has bronchopneumonia. It needs to go into a hospital right now. There is no option because of where they live. There's no exotic vets or whatever. So even in those situations, we have the responsibility of trying to give them some advice of what to do, what to look out for. So we get pretty creative, and that's where collaboration kicks in. Our veterinarians all talk to each other, and they all share ideas because they all have different experiences with different situations, different species. So it's a great collaborative environment for that purpose.
Okay, so you're also not, and again, I'm trying to make this as broadly applicable as possible and not just talk about
Sure.
your service, but for you guys, you're not on your own. If you the vet, you can ask a friend.
Correct. Absolutely. You
Yeah,
can do
okay.
research with whatever items you want to do research with, whether it's online or textbooks or whatever. You can talk to our colleagues. You can talk to your own friends, your own colleagues, on your own personal life, whatever it may be, and then contact the client back later and tell them what you think after you've done your research. So that's fine too, of course.
Are they sort of unanticipated perks, joys, things that people really enjoy about this that you might not think about
One
beforehand?
one that I alluded to is giving clients real peace of mind. I mean, seeing the stress leave their
Mhm.
body when they're talking to you because they're concerned about, do I have to drive to the nearest emergency hospital, which is 3 hours away and it's snowing outside? Or if they live in an island,
Mhm.
do I have to now go onto a ferry or buy a plane ticket for my animal and then travel over some body of water to get to the nearest emergency? They're worried about finances. They're worried about waking up their kids. They're worried about their cat hating the car ride. And when you tell them good news, I don't think it's an emergency, they're like, oh, sigh of relief, you know? And so that I think is probably the number one reason why our vets really enjoy this is they give people real peace of mind for cases that are not an emergency. We can do some things at home and then gives them some time to see a vet in person. So I think that's probably the number one most rewarding thing. I will flip it a little bit. Let's say you have a hemoabdomen or a GDV at what you suspect, anyways, a GDV or a hemoabdomen at home. And that same scenario, it's a plane ride, it's a ferry, it's a 3 hour drive in the snow.
Mhm.
Basically, emergency is not an option. What can we do for that animal at home? And we have scary scenarios like that where even though it's stressful to our veterinarians because nobody's advocating that a GDV stay home, but that client has no
Mhm.
option. There's no option. And so they collaborate and even giving that client just education on what to expect, what to do at home, knowing that it's severe, but we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. It gives our vets enjoyment because that person with that GDV, had we not existed, would have to watch their dog die a painful death without any knowledge of what's going on with their animal. At least with us, we can help educate them and maybe even keep that animal alive until they can see a veterinarian. So it's
Mhm.
a daunting task, but our veterinarians, I think, take pride, enjoy it, that they can help give that person some perspective.
Very cool insight. Is there anything that I'm missing from that perspective, or do you think we've covered it pretty
I
well?
think folks should know that this is not the end of it. It's going to continue to evolve. The world of telerobotics, telediagnostics, telementorship, telemonitoring, these are all things that are already in the works in real life or are pending. But there are some cool things coming down the pipe. And then when you look at augmented reality, virtual reality, and how they can play a role with virtual care. There's going to be some cool stuff coming the next 5 to 10 years in this space. So I would say this is just the beginning of it. There is a ton of stuff happening. And because we're at the forefront of this, I hear about this stuff and I get to talk to cool companies and cool people about what they're doing. And it's
Mm.
very exciting. So I would say the one thing to add to this conversation is look forward to the future because this is just the beginning of it. For anybody who doubts whether or not telehealth is a viable field, we are past that. We're going on to another realm with this stuff, and this is just the basics.
So do you have time to dig into the perspective of a business owner saying, do I incorporate this either through outsourcing it or through incorporating new things in the way that I practice?
I'd love to talk about that.
Let's jump in with the stuff you just mentioned, the future. Out of the things you briefly listed a few words there that immediately I went, what's that? What's the coolest thing that's coming or is here and but not commonly known yet in telehealth that excites
I think
you?
telediagnostics is probably the one, my answer for that one. Telediagnostics, I would define as the ability to monitor certain parameters objectively of a pet and have it be shared instantaneously with a veterinary professional. So a good example of that we've been performing is that device for diabetics.
Continuous glucose monitors.
Right.
So yeah, there's a few brand names. The
Right,
Freestyle
right.
Libre, the
That's a
most common
that's a
one.
that's a very easy, understandable, relatable telediagnostic tool. We've all been using it for some time now. Very powerful. That enhances pet care. It enhances veterinary monitoring.
Mm.
It's awesome, right? There are now diagnostics that you can implement in your hospital that will monitor certain parameters of a hospitalized patient without any wires, without any suction cups, and you can monitor things like temperature, heart rate, whatever for that pet without touching them. And the device is doing this all with telediagnostics, and it'll monitor multiple pets at one time. And that information is automatically uploaded into the cloud for veterinary observation. Also, those tools can have alarms to them, so they'll alert you when something seems off. Those types of telediagnostics are now in the hospital setting. And my prediction is it's going to enter the pet owner's life where they can set up something in their house that monitors certain vitals. Or let's say you have a dog that's prone to seizures and you want to know if your dog had a seizure while you were at work. Diagnostics to be able to show that, whether it be based on erratic movement or spikes in temperature or heart rate or blood pressure, whatever it is, but being able to give the pet owner the ability to monitor their own animal with objective data so they can contact a virtual platform and discuss whether or not that spike in something is of concern or not. So telediagnostics, we're in the infancy of it, but it's going to be, I think, huge, not just from the veterinary clinical aspect where you can monitor pets more reliably and not rely on technicians and stuff as much, but also home care
Mhm.
as a preventative measure to monitor animals. Say if you can tell that your dog all of a sudden has a increased body temperature, is this the beginning of something or is it stress or what is it? And you can catch diseases earlier that way. And that's of course better for everybody. Preventative care, right?
Mhm.
So that's an example of where this is going to go with health. And I have ideas that I can't disclose, but we have things we're going to implement here, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years with vet triage and how it ties into telediagnostics. So that's going to be a cool and up and coming
Cool.
field in this space.
That is really cool. Are there devices out there now that you've come across that work that people are using?
So one company that's at the forefront of this is Zomedica. I think they're based in the US and they have a device called Vet Guardian. And it's like the size of an iPad, basically. And it monitors these parameters using thermal imagery, so thermography. And it allows the clinician to upload this information to the cloud and they can monitor the patient continuously. You attach it to an IV pole and have it point at the animal, and there you have it. No wires, no Holter monitor.
Oh, really? So there's nothing attached to the patient
Correct.
at all? What can it check? That sounds like
So,
science fiction.
body temperature, pulse rate or heart rate, movement of the patient, because not only does it have thermal imagery, it actually has a real video camera attached to it too. So the patient is moving, you can tell that as well. I had to look at the other parameters, but those are the ones that I off the top of my head that I know of.
How does it do heart rate?
It's all thermography. They have clinical trials on this, and basically, this is of course me trying to answer your question about being based on the thermal pattern of the patient. It use an algorithm, calculates it, figures out the parameters.
That's really cool. I'm glad you told me that because if I saw that online, I would be like,
Yeah.
bullshit. It's not going
Oh
to
yeah.
work.
Look,
It
I
sounds
think these
fake.
units are like $5,000 a piece. I mean, you have to be able to use it and break even on it, right? So you need a facility that warrants this type of thing.
Where I work now, our seizure monitoring tool is a collar with bells on. We can hear them seizuring. So this sounds better. It sounds
You
more
know what?
reliable.
The old school measures work too. Hey, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong.
Pivoting to the standard, your sort of stuff, teletriage, having some sort of a service where you can communicate with clients not in person, as in not physically in person. Lessons learned for you guys. Are there standout things maybe things that you thought were going to be challenges that were easier than you thought, where you went, oh, this works much better, or vice versa, stuff that blindsided you a bit, where you
Oh,
went, oh shit,
absolutely.
I did not expect that to be
Long
the issue.
list. So initially, I thought the biggest challenge was going to be to hire veterinarians. I thought veterinarians are not going to want to do this. They want to be in the hospital using their hands, using
Mm.
diagnostics, and I was wrong. I'm always sitting on 150 plus applicants ready for work. I've had no problem. It's
Really?
crazy, Hugh. It's crazy. I've never advertised for vets except when we launched our equine platform. I had to advertise for equine doctors. In less than a month, I was able to staff our platform 24/7 with equine veterinarians. Less than a month. It takes hospitals years to find one. It's
Wow.
crazy. If I wanted to create a platform that was all nurses, I could fill it in a month because I get applicants now. I'm not even asking for nurses, and I get applicants from nursing. Hey, when you're ready to hire a nurse, let me know. I'm interested. It's out of control. So the application part of it was a surprise to me. I actually thought the veterinary field would hold on to this right away, but the culture has been the opposite. Trying to convince veterinarians
Mm.
that telehealth is a viable means of practicing veterinary medicine has been the hardest part of all of this because veterinarians, as you know, we're difficult to change. We don't like change. We're always skeptical of things. We're always worried about bad ethics. We're worried about bad medicine, and we're worried about money being taken out of our pockets, right? And so I didn't
Mm.
realize, maybe foolishly so, that the veterinary culture would be hard to steer into that direction where they view telehealth as a really powerful method of taking care of animals. So that was a surprise to me as well. So those are just two surprises that I learned over time from doing this.
Is that changing? Are you finding a more of an acceptance as it's becoming, we've had some time to get
On
comfortable
the
with this change?
non-equine, absolutely. Any practice that doesn't practice on large animals, production animals, they are much more likely to adapt to this technology. Large animal is a different story. They are much more difficult to convince. Equine vets, especially, have been used to being on call 24/7 with the clients having their cell phone forever. And we launched the equine platform 2 years ago, and it's still very slow to ramp up because they're so scared of clients being upset that they can't just phone you right away, anytime, day or night, and to hand over their clients to us so we can manage their after hours on call so they have more work-life balance. That has been a huge struggle.
That's it's so weird. I would have thought it'd be the exact opposite. That'd be so sick of it. I mean, that's a large reason why I never wanted to do larges is the constant on call. I reckon they've got Stockholm
Yeah,
syndrome. The equine vets, they're so used to being hostage to their clients that
yeah,
they can't
and
imagine
and
any
and
other way.
we are getting more and more equine partnerships over time, so it's moving in the right direction, but still compared to non-equine, very slow. You would think that after they've tried all the other things to manage their quality of life and all those other things have failed, they'd be willing to try something new, and they're very very slow to adopt. So we're going to keep trying. We're fighting the good fight because we know it's an answer to their problem. We just need them to be able to let go of the reins, no pun intended, and let us control their after hours on call.
Good pun. I like that. I'm going to circle back to your massive list of people who
Yeah,
want to work in it. I think that's worth pointing out, worth underlining for practice owners, brick and mortar practice owners, to say that if we're trying to create workplaces that people want to work in. It's the whole staff finding and staff retention thing, and there's a desire for this sort of thing. So maybe setting up something as part of your business model where your staff have the opportunity to do some of this might be very attractive. Might actually be a recruitment tool.
yes. So I love that you said that. We've had plenty of hospitals that use us for their after hours on call who are trying to hire new vets, especially new grads, and the new graduates don't want to be on call. And in order to entice them to join that practice, they'll say, look, you're going to be on call. There's no way around it. We live in a remote area. However, vet triage has decreased our calls by 80, 90%. We almost never get called in. And when we do, it's really an emergency. So you're not getting bullshit. It's an authentic, real case that a veterinarian has seen and
Yeah.
triaged and deemed an emergency. So they've used that. They've actually asked our permission. Can we use the fact that we're partnered with you to get this doctor to come join our practice. And we're like, absolutely, go for it. That's the point of work-life balance. That's the whole goal here, is to help veterinary clinics with balance. So yes, it helps with recruitment. It helps with turnover. If you're an emergency hospital and you know that your staff is sick of seeing the ear infection and the limping puppy, things that are not an emergency, and that's creating stress. Well, if you can partner with Vet Triage and send us those cases so we can triage them away, you can focus on the pyometra, the GDV, the seizuring case, and we'll handle the allergic reaction, the ear infection, the whatever. And then you keep your staff because now they're not stressed out and annoyed all the time, right? How many times in your ER hospital, Hugh, did you hear a technician or an assistant or a doctor say, why is this case here? Why are they here, right? It's always. And I don't blame them. They've got a septic abdomen and a post-op splenectomy. They have big cases to deal with. They don't want to see this barking loud puppy come in for one bout of diarrhea at 3 a.m. So it helps with turnover and hiring all the way around. If you can leverage telehealth.
Okay. Challenges in that regard? Unexpected challenges, things that you tried or common mistakes or where people get stuck.
It's the medical records. And this is just like brick and mortar, right? Like if you're in charge of the team, let's say you own your hospital and you're in charge of all these doctors, you know that Dr. A writes beautiful records, Dr. D, terrible records, right? And we need tight medical records. That's true in brick and mortar, and it's especially true with us because we are limited. We don't have the cushion of blood work or urine test or radiographs. So trying to get them to write medical records, I would love if they wrote it the same way, but of course I can't standardize it that way. There's 70 doctors, and I don't want them to all be me, and I'm by no means the perfect solution to this. So I just want thorough medical records and consistency. Everything you told the client that you spoke about, even if you don't think it's important, put it in the record, type it in there, right?
What about the technology side of it? Because off air, you told me you guys built it all out the box, your own platform. Why is that? So let's say I'm a GP practice, but I want to start using some sort of telemedicine, and I'm not going to build my own platform. Why did you guys choose to make your own? And if you're in a different scenario, what should you look out for or be wary of, or what are your requirements that's going to tick the right boxes for you?
So for us, first of all, we did not want to have an app. We want it to be where the client can go on the website right away, pay, and be on with the vet because we're dealing with emergencies. So for them to have to go to the app store, download it, then create an account, it's going to create barriers. So we made it where it's web-based on ours, and not just web-based, but it's agnostic to any device. The other part of it too is we want also to have a platform that we can evolve. So I'll give you a good example of this. Right now, as it stands, if you are providing telehealth within a brick and mortar, you are required to maintain medical records in compliance with standard brick and mortar medical records. If, however, you're providing telehealth outside of a brick and mortar, there's no rules for that. And so you can write whatever crappy notes you want if you're not related to a brick and mortar, and that's fine. It's your prerogative. My prediction was we will eventually not only need actual medical records, but we will eventually probably need our own EMR, electronic medical record, with client information, pet information. So I want a platform that we can also then evolve as the rules evolve. And then of course, there's things like quality. I want good quality visual. I want good quality audio. I want cybersecurity. So we're HIPAA compliant, even though we're not required to be in the veterinary space. I wanted the ability to control the stuff. And honestly, just from a standpoint of just being cool, if I had to use Zoom or Skype to do this, are you a real company? Like you're leeching off some other platform? I want to own the damn thing and be a big boy in the field. And so we put in the money and the time to build something that's truly unique. And then lastly, I'm a veterinarian. I want the platform to appease me as a doctor. If I hate my platform, how can I expect another doctor to like it?
Okay, but it's a very different vision for somebody else who wants to say add some element of telemedicine to my brick and mortar business. So if I was a clinic owner and I want to start doing teleconsults, I'd immediately gravitate towards saying, as you say, Zoom or WhatsApp calls or something like that with my clients. Any reason why that wouldn't work?
No. You can provide this medium using any video device you want, as long as you believe it's secure, meaning no leaked data or whatever else, right? Even though again, confidentiality is not a big deal in the veterinary space like it is in the human space. As long as it's a secure platform, then sure, you can use whatever you want. If you can leverage telehealth in your brick and mortar, you don't want to necessarily invest a lot of money into it, but you want to make it useful. The only thing, though, Hugh, is that it didn't seem to really catch on. Once we started Vet Triage, there were other companies that came out afterwards, and their business model was leasing out their platform for vet hospitals to use. And in the beginning, during COVID, they blew up. I mean, they were popular. Everybody thought they'd be doing. And then you quickly find out that veterinarians don't like to be on video. If they're in a hospital, they want to use their hands and run diagnostics and do stuff. If you're stuck on a video call in a hospital, it's kind of like, what am I doing here? I could just have them come in and then I'll just palpate the animal, you know? So it quickly ran out of steam. I don't know where the numbers are now, but as far as I can tell, they're not even on the radar anymore. So there's a message that's clear where veterinary hospitals, although they could leverage telehealth, make their lives more efficient, it doesn't seem to appeal to them as much.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Because based on conversations I've had on here, the idea of saying, okay, I have a brick and mortar practice, but perhaps it makes sense in terms of productivity and also balance for the staff to say, well, Dr. X is going to work from home on Thursdays and she's going to see all of our rechecks via video
Yes.
call, follow up with all these clients or talk to the diabetic patients, have a teleconsult, which makes sense. But it is interesting that it's not actually taking off. But for that, you could just sit, you can have your PIMS open at home and you can have Zoom on your other screen or WhatsApp, whatever, any of the many ones out there.
And I literally quadruple your appointments if most of them are virtual, right? People can work from home. If you have a veterinarian who's
Yeah.
pregnant and she can still work, but she can't
Yeah.
be there. Yeah. And so I agree. I think it's a cultural problem. Number one, veterinarians still don't see, if you're an employer, you may not see it worth paying a vet 6 figures to be at home. And then the other thing is technology. I will tell you, we have a whole customer service and a development team. It is a pain in the ass because most people have bad internet, bad devices. They're older. They don't know how to use technology. Their internet drops. Their cell phone dies. And so I think that trying to set up a Zoom call with a client who is not very tech savvy is a pain in the ass. So I wonder if those two reasons are why.
So to clarify, it's a pain in the ass for you guys as well. Is that one of your operational problems?
I would say it's a challenge, but we have teams that take care of it. I have a dev team. I have customer support. They handle it, and it's, knock on wood, it's worked very, very well. But we also do this full time.
Okay.
And even though it's a challenge, we've mastered it because we do this 24/7 for over 5 years now.
I think I'm done with my questions. Is there anything we haven't discussed that people need to keep in mind, or any parting messages or anything that I've missed?
No, man, I think that's great. Your questions are always intriguing, and I welcome any other discussion in the future with you. It's always fun.
Cool. Where can people find you if they listen to this and says, "Oh, I think I need to outsource my after hours from," as you said, anywhere in the world? What do we Google?
Vettriage.com. It's VETTRIAGE.com. There's a contact form in there you can fill out, and then I'll get the email directly, or my business partner will, and you can inquire. But also we have lots of social media. There's my name, Dr. Shadi Ireifej, in Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. We have a Vet Triage Instagram. And so you can message us, DM us, whatever, through any of those platforms.
Cool. I will put links in the show notes as well, or in the show description when you're listening to this. Shadi, thank you so much for your time. It's a really interesting topic, and I think it's one of those episodes that I think are going to get more listens because, as you say, as the culture shifts, people are going to think about this more and more and more.
Sure.
So thanks for doing it and doing all the hard work for us to get it up and running.
Thank you very much for your time.
Before you disappear, I wanted to tell you about my weekly newsletter. I speak to so many interesting people and learn so many new things while making the clinical podcasts. So I thought I'd create a little summary each week of the stuff that stood out for me. We call it the VetVault 321, and it consists of 3 clinical pearls. These are 3 things that I've taken away from making the clinical podcast episodes. My light bulb moments. 2 other things. These could be quotes, links, movies, books, a podcast highlight, maybe even from my own podcast. Anything that I've come across outside of clinical vetting that I think that you might find interesting. And then 1 thing to think about, which is usually something that I'm pondering this week and that I'd like you to ponder with me. If you'd like to get these in your inbox each week, then follow the newsletter link in the show description wherever you're listening. It's free, and I'd like to think it's useful. Okay, we'll see you next time.